All right, good morning, everyone. So we're going to start with the June's webinar of the product. So first off, as always, some housekeeping. Obviously, the purpose of this is to have a better communication to all our client base in terms of what are the latest updates to the platform. If you need to chat, then there should be a chat button on the menu for Zoom. And you can use that chat button to ask questions or make comments or observations about what you're looking at. So let's start with the things that we got from last webinar. So first off was how do you actually reuse a previous analysis that you've done on a sanctions or a PEP match? So it's actually in general, the purpose, once again, is to understand when there is a PEP or a sanctions match and you do an analysis and you record this analysis, then the system will remember this. And there are a few things that you have to do to make sure that the system is properly configured. So actually, we wrote a whole blog post on it, and with all the details in that, and you can see all the questions. And if you still have questions after reading that blog post, please reach out to us, and we'll make sure that that we can see it, that we can answer those questions. The second question we got was if there was anything new that you needed to do to access the Mexico identity validation. The answer is no. There's nothing really that you need to do other than making sure that you are passing the CURP. The CURP is sort of is an ID in the Mexico for Mexico, and the database does need to have the CURP ID in order to return. Last, we got a question about when we mentioned last webinar that you can have support for multiple character sets for sanctions, then whether you could provide those within the same API query. And the answer is no. You do have to provide multiple KYC transactions. That means that each one of those transactions maybe with the different character set. So if you have something in Latin character set and then you have something in Cyrillic, for example, you would have to provide two different KYC transactions for it. All right, let's start with the new stuff. So first off, filing SARs directly into FinCEN. So this is new. I think I announced it in the last webinar. But here I wanted to give you more insights and more details about it. Previously, you had to actually download and submit it through the FinCEN interface, so you could create it in our platform, download it, and then submit it. In the current implementation, the platform will also record FinCEN's acknowledgement of receiving the SAR or whether it was rejected and you need to resubmit it. In the case that it was rejected, you do have to make edits and resubmit it to FinCEN for it to be recorded by them. So also the interface is updated as soon as FinCEN responds, and usually these take a couple of hours to update. We have seen rejections even 24 hours after so far from the clients that are using it. It could take a little bit longer. But in general, what we've seen is rejections after 24 hours. So to use it, you just need to use the case management interface. Use your cases, and then there's going to be the SAR filing and so forth. There has to be a whole set of steps for the configuration. These are all documented in the SAR filing document. You do need to make contact directly to client support because there is a backend configuration that is needed to enable the filing of the SARs directly from the platform. And you can find a lot more information also about the SAR and about how to edit it, use it in the documentation at that link. The benefits, the SAR integration maintains all the needed records to manage your audit process and with examiners and regulators. And you have obviously a single system that you can complete all your regulatory filings that is integrated with the detection and the investigation of the activities, the users, and and sanctions. Next is collusion. This is actually something that we have been working on for a long time. One of the actual first uses of the platform was how to identify collusion in merchant portfolios for a risk-bearing ISO. So the idea is in collusion is that you have obviously two actors, and you want to identify whether these two actors within your ecosystem are working together to commit fraud or to subvert your policies and the policies and the way that the system is implemented. So we have released a set of tests that are looking for commonalities across entities, in particular in a transfer transaction, right? Where you have two ends of that transaction, so source and destination, and those should not be connected, right? So if you are, for example, in a marketplace and you are buying from a seller, in general, the attributes of those identities should not match or should not be shared between those two. So those sharings of attributes is what we've added now in security test 149 through 151. Collusion is a big problem, and it's growing because of the of how many marketplaces there are now, how many sharing economies there are. So that the idea of how you identify this connection between the source and the destination is actually quite important. Collusion is also an early indicator for money laundering. So if you are using the system to monitor suspicious activities and pay peer-to-peer payments, then finding information about the relation between those two source and destination is actually quite important. A similar set of tasks we did on the shipping addresses. And shipping addresses, again, it's the fact that you have some form of velocity on the shipping addresses. If you are somebody that is doing e-commerce and then sending products, the velocity at which a user is associated with shipping addresses is also a good indication for fraud. Could be an indication of collusion, and we are actually seeing also that behavior in account takeovers. So again, if you are you have a marketplace or you're an e-commerce site that is sending products, the velocity of the shipping address is actually quite interesting to monitor. As part of the latest release, we actually one of the issues that we have been addressing is how to aggregate information about the different KYC transactions that are sent. Today we have the notion of a KYC application. The idea is then how you aggregate all the rules and information associated throughout those applications, throughout those transactions, sorry. So now within the application dashboard, you're able to see a couple of new widgets that are starting to show aggregated data throughout the lifetime of that application. We'll continue to build more of this, but now at least all the information is in a single place. So how you use it, there is a menu within the investigation dashboard. So once you go after an application and you go and click investigate, then you can go to that menu, and that would open up in a new browser or tab window. Again, we'll continue to work on this. I think the workflow still is not where it needs to be, but it will continue to that. A couple other things, we updated our bank identification number database, so we have a new provider. So now it's a bit more reliable. It's always up to date. And we also released a set of security tests that are focused on detecting card testing. All right, in terms of the main feature that we wanted to talk about, it is about the ability of the system now to understand users that are coming from sanctioned countries to the analysis of virtual currency. So this is something that is very, very unique to our VCRA solution, which is the virtual currency risk assessment solution. And that's a service that is available to all of you. So if you are somebody that is either managing a digital currency exchange or is doing an ICO or an STO, or you are allowing payments through Bitcoin or other really that you're running a sanctions program that is associated with virtual addresses, virtual currencies, sorry, then with VCRA, we give you what is considered the country associated to the user of those addresses or those hashes. And the partner technology we're using allows us then to bring us that country in country code. So within the system, then you can go and say, these are the countries that I don't want to do, that I need to compare because are considered either sanctioned or high risk countries. So, so I think that's the one. Okay. So the list of countries can be configured in the user interface. So it's going to be the same place where the blacklist is. So as a configuration item, you're going to see a type called VCRA address country code, and then you can type there the different country codes that you want to make sure that you don't do business with. Obviously, the sanctioned countries are Iran, Cuba, Syria, North Korea. We also suggest that you take a look at their high-risk countries. There are several lists that you can look at, but one that seems to be interesting is the Basel AML CFT index. So that categorizes the countries by risk. So you could add those into your configuration. And there are some jurisdictions that have other specific countries, or there are jurisdictions that do not necessarily have the same sanctioned countries as in the United States. So depending on the jurisdiction you're in, then you can do this. The blacklists are configured across the system for your use. A couple more things about it. Again, I mentioned, we partner with CipherTrace to provide a blockchain analysis. So this information is coming from them. And the countries are not always available. So they're going to give us the results of that country whenever that is possible. But there are some limitations to it, and not always the data is available in the blockchain. All right. Next, so why is it important? Very obviously, if you do businesses with a sanctioned country, that is, you're going to get fined if it's found out. So if you are dealing with virtual currency addresses, you have to have a way to try to get whether that user comes from a country that is sanctioned. So regulators understand that technology is evolving, and they are aware that technologies such as this do exist. So it is important for you, if you're dealing with this, that you do the best you can to actually monitor countries that might be sanctioned or might be of high risk. All right, so before we go into what is coming next, I wanted to give it to Basel, so he can give you a little bit of a view into how the system is approaching these features.
Okay. Thank you, Jose. Thanks for a great overview. Do you mind?
Maybe you can share. Yes, sure.
Yes, thanks. 1 second. There we go. Let me go ahead and share my screen. So what I plan to do, mostly in the same line as Jose was mentioning, that we have strengthened the platform's fraud scheme detection capabilities with collusion detection. So I'll show you how within the system you can configure those detection rules, as well as how it will look from an analyst or investigation perspective within the UI. Then I'll do a quick walkthrough from one of the most requested features from most of you is enhancements to the KYC dashboards. And another most requested one is the automated filing for the SAR directly to the FinCEN. So let me go and refresh the browser just to make sure I have the right session. So within this example, this is the fraud scheme example which I want to share. So in this example, we have Carla Nelson. So you can see the information over here. So over here, the system has detected device collusion. So let's look at the additional details. By looking at the additional details, let's see, from the graph itself, so another point is that if you want to maximize entity graphs or any of the widgets, you can do it with these arrows. So if you look at this scenario, so we have Adin as well as Carla on a platform, and it is very obvious that the account was created using the same device in this process. And you can see over here is that Adin has the system products which Carla is going to purchase, and then all these cards have been used to do that using the same device. So what happens is that when the purchase has been completed, all the funds are transferred to Adin, and then Adin basically goes ahead and withdraws those funds from that platform itself. So this is a good case to not only detect, but also to view from an investigation perspective. So it's very easy to understand, okay, why and what is happening. And now you can see it's a very easy view. If you click on Adin in this example, so you can see that the system has detected a fraud screen related to collusion, and then your team can definitely go and investigate. And this is the focal point from a device perspective. Another example for collusion would be related to addresses, physical addresses. So in this example, another fraud scheme has been detected related to addresses. So when we go and investigate this user, then you can see in this example, you have Douglas and you have Corey sharing the same address. And then you can see movement, how other users are connected to Douglas from a payments perspective, as well as how they're sharing the device. So this is another example how they're colluding together. And if you look at all the test results, so in this case, it says that it was an address collusion, and this is the test which fired. You can configure these within your platforms. If you go to the admin section or the configuration section of fraud schemes, then you click on admin, and then these are the tests which were mentioned earlier. So these are available, which you can easily configure and deploy in real time. So you have your IP-based collusion, you have your device-based, as well as your billing, shipping, address-based collusion. And if you need any assistance on how to set up or what the best practices are, feel free to reach out to the customer success manager, and they will connect you to a fraud expert, and they can walk you through multiple scenarios as well as provide guidance. So moving on from the fraud schemes to the UI enhancements. I know most of you have been asking about that. So let me share, let me pull up an example. In this one, so we have been working very hard in making sure that we enhance the widgets which are available to you from an investigation perspective. So this is an example of Frank Davis. So now these are all the widgets which are available to you or to your team for investigation purposes. And a lot of times the request was that, okay, if we have to rerun this, how would we go about rerunning this without rerunning everything about a user? So now for each of the widgets, now you see a drop down, which allows you to basically rerun that check in real time. So taking an example, if we had to rerun this check, then it will say, okay, submit the information and go and rerun this. And now you can see, okay, it was just rerun recently, and you can look at the results. And this option is available to basically to all widgets within the platform. And just additional data points. So let's say all of these are modular. So if you want to add any additional data points, then you can go ahead and do that. So let's go and add one more external services, the way it got added over here. So I just expand this a little bit, and then take an example. If I want to do document verification manually, then I can basically start this process and then provide the images and then complete the process. So now all of your widgets for the third parties have an ability to rerun those checks from within the user interface itself. Okay. Moving on to the third one, the SAR connection, direct SAR filing to FinCEN. So let me go and refresh this connection. Let's see. And log in really quick. So how the process works is it's in two stages. One is, let me show you from an end user perspective how it would look like your compliance manager, compliance officers. So how the process would work is that once a SOD is created, as an example, then you have the ability to go and edit and do filing. So you have this option now to directly submit to FinCEN. As well as you have the option of downloading the XML if you need to. And then how the process works is that when a user clicks on submit to FinCEN, there are checks performed on the data form itself, just to make sure that all the information which is required to submit the form has been completely filled out. And then when you submit, here's another example where we would submit a form and then we get an acknowledgement back from FinCEN. And then if you look at all these states, like rejected at FinCEN, rejected it, if it has been transmitted, if it's in the transmitted state where we have not heard back from FinCEN. So all these states are available and configured without any human intervention here. Then these are the records as well. So in case where FinCEN mentions that, yes, we have accepted, but it was accepted with errors, or we got an acknowledgement, but it has errors in it which needs to be fixed. Then the analyst can basically click on this file, get the necessary details as to what errors needs to be fixed within the form, go and fix them, and they can go and resubmit the same form. So all those capabilities are now automated. And then, as usual, we have retained the ability to manually record filing as well. But now you have an automated way of doing it. And the process, as Jose was mentioning earlier, it's very simple. You just go to your FinCEN website, and then you can configure the accounts. We have properly documented step by step, laying out as to what process needs to happen. And once you have those necessary details, then you can come back to the admin section, and you can go to the SAR filing configuration. This is the account information which has to be requested or which is provided from FinCEN to you. So the SDTM account. So you can enter the the username and password over here. Click submit, and the option to do an automated SAR filing becomes available immediately. So again, to quickly summarize as to what I went through like how we have enhanced our platform capabilities to detect fraud schemes related to collusion. So that is available to you. One of the most featured requests from you guys related to enhancement for the KYC widgets. Now that is available along with SAR filing directly to FinCEN. And again, if you have any questions, we're always here to answer those. So back to Jose.
Thank you, Faisal. So what's coming next? More KYC dashboard widgets. We will continue working on the aggregation of data and present that through the KYC dashboard. Dual source identity validation in Canada. This is very important if you have clients in Canada and are doing KYC. We are finalizing a partnership that would allow us to do this. And we also have upcoming additional document verification providers. So at the moment, we have Mitek as our partner. There are others coming, so we can have better coverage in certain countries and in certain documents. As always, if you have, if you want to access this afterwards, there is the customer webinars portal, and there is the documentation side. Again, within the portal itself, You get access to the webinars through the identitymind.com, the documentation site, and you can get access to the documents and the links that we make reference to within the webinar. And as always, you're CSM, so if you have any questions, if you have any doubts about what you saw, or you have other things, then please feel free to access directly your CSM. All right, that's the time for now. I appreciate you guys joining, and we'll see you next time. Thank you very much.